Welcome to this week's story update. We're going to be speaking with Andre, who shared their story with us just over 5 years ago. But before we do, let's take a look at their story.
Hi, I'm Andre J. I'm from Newark, New Jersey. I remember this one particular time growing up in the projects that I was coming home from school and a 20-year-old looked at me and said, "You're a sissy now, and when you grow up, you're going to be a faggot and you're going to take it in the," I'm not going to say the graphic part. And it's ironic because my auntie overheard her. And my aunt was just shocked that how could someone say something as mean to a child? And my auntie committed an act of whoop ass. That's what we call it. She and my aunt actually started fighting, and from that moment on, I was shocked. I had never experienced anything as severe or as critical as that. And that kind of made me really not like going outside. That made me stay in the house, and then from staying in the house, I found this passion for television. And then on television, I realized that there was a woman named Diana Ross. And then there was Cher. And these ladies were beautiful, they were magical, they were captivating, they were sophisticated, they were classy. And that was my escape. It gave me this liberation of loving yourself. There was a poise and there was a grace that they had that inspired or ignited something in me that I just wasn't aware of. And, I remember at 10 years old, I remember just going into the bathroom one day and I saw my reflection in a mirror and I said, "Andre, I love you." And from that moment of really understanding that I loved myself, I felt this huge relief. Years later, I decide, I met a few friends and we're like, let's go to LA. It's a new start. We don't know anyone. We can master our artistry. It's a whole new beginning. So it was wonderful. And when I got out to LA, they were fascinated by my style. So, I ended up doing 3 appearances on Jay Leno. I ended up being on this reality show called Being Bobby Brown with Whitney Houston. And I was like, oh my goodness. All of the things that people teased me about or called me names about or those things that were supposed to be my flaws were really my strengths. And, I was like, I'm going back. I'm like, LA, this is cute, this is great, but peace. I'm out of here, I'm going back. So I went back to Newark, and from Newark, on the airplane, I saw something about two spirits. Now, two spirits are Native Americans, and the two spirit basically represents the balance of the masculine and feminine spirit. With two spirits, they focus on gender, and your gender is the focus of the role that you play in your community. So when I saw that, I was like, oh my goodness, so this is not just about gay or straight. This is really about the spirit of people. This is about the way people feel about themselves. So when I returned back to New York City, it was just like I had this new idea of life, this new energy, this spice. I decided I'm gonna wear a wig and women's clothes and heels and dresses. When I was doing this in 2005, no one looked like what I was doing. And I started working for Patricia Field. I became the PR director for the boutique, and I had a client by the name of Joe McKenna. And ironically, one day I'm walking down the street to get lunch, and Joe yells to me, and he says, "Andre, I'm on the phone with Bruce Weber, and he should shoot you." And I'm like, okay, it's New York. Like, sure, let's make it happen. I get a phone call from Bruce's assistant. Her name was Gwen. I remember this day so vividly. And Gwen says to me, "Andre, I want you to come for a casting to shoot with Bruce." So I get there, and it's the most shocking experience you can imagine. Like, this is Bruce Weber, who shoots for Abercrombie and Fitch, shoots for Vogue. I mean, he's Bruce Weber. He's like the greatest. And again, show up to this casting, and let's just make a long story short, I end up booking the job. And to make it even more fantastic is I am on the cover of French Vogue 2007, which makes me the only African-American male, statistically male, but the only African-American male, genderless, to grace the cover of French Vogue. It is the most unbelievable experience that one can happen. I think the overall vision of what it is that you see comes from the depth of me loving myself. It's not just about the exterior. The exterior is what it is because the interior actually is in alignment with it. I love myself. The most important thing that you can do, regardless of what anyone is saying to you, find out who you are. Love yourself. You're going to experience adversities. You're going to experience diversity. You're going to experience all things under the sun. That's just a part of life. But the real focus of you living your life is the importance of loving yourself. There's nothing like it. You can conquer all when you love yourself.
Okay, welcome, Andre. How are you? How's it going?
Hey, Nathan, how are you? I'm very well. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks for taking the time to speak with us. In your story, you talked about, you were in New Jersey and then you went to LA and had all the success and found some fame, and you moved back to the East Coast. Where are you these days?
I am in Newark, New Jersey. That's where I reside, and especially now with the sadness of the pandemic that's going on in the world. I haven't really experienced the post-traumatic stress disorder as a New Yorker because I'm in New Jersey. So New York is much more fast-paced and New Jersey is calmer and slower. So I'm at a different element of inner peace. So it feels really, really, really different, but yet, change brings greatness. My slogan was every adversity brings you to your greatness. And I just feel like this is just another, extension of it.
That doesn't, based on your story, that doesn't surprise me at all that you found some sort of, way of looking at this in a positive light. And speaking of which, one thing that I really loved about your story is that when you were just 10 years old, you talked about how you looked in a mirror after some challenges and you just said, "Andre, I love you," to yourself. Is that kind of positive thinking and that kind of stuff helping you through this pandemic? And also, what would you tell other people who are having a hard time through the pandemic, how to kind of cope with it?
Faith over fear. Faith over fear. Faith over fear. Faith over fear. It's either you got the faith or you're going to have the fear. You can't be both. So it's either you're going to choose faith and commit to it, or you're going to choose fear and you're going to commit to it. And for me, I chose faith because faith is extremely, 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 extremely important in uncertainty, as well as during this whole COVID thing. I lost two family members also. I lost two cousins. They were sisters and they were less than 2 months apart. Less than 2 months apart. So that created its own void because we couldn't send them off properly. We couldn't have that family gathering, that family structure that you usually have during the repast, where the family comes together, they have those family memories, they hug, they talk, they eat food, and they have that bonding. That was absent. So that was also extremely, extremely, extremely critical in this whole COVID-19 situation. It's been a very interesting experience nonetheless for all of us.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that you lost people that you love.
Thank you.
What was that process afterwards like for you to, how did you, I don't want to say you overcame it because who can overcome something like that, but how did you move on from that? What kind of, how did you look in and try to figure that out?
There's nothing you can do. It's not like there was an option or there was not like there was other resources. There's nothing you can do. It's only 10 people at a time. You can't have the family come together like that. And that's just for safety, just for the rest of the family to continue to be alive. So, it's extremely important to take those necessary steps. And, once this all comes to pass, there will be coming together and we can really, really, really do it the right way. But you have to stay safe. And, in the end, it's just really about being safe.
Yeah, great. And I hope that you are staying safe during all this. There was one more thing that I wanted to talk about from your story, is that in it you talked about two-spirit, and you talked a little bit about it in your story, but can you explain what two-spirit is to people who might not know what that is or means?
Well, two spirits are Native Americans who actually possess the spirits of masculine and feminine, and they go through a ritual to, if it's a boy that has the spirit of a girl, they'll go through a ritual and allow that child to be that of what they feel spiritually. And for me, understanding what two spirits was and really learning about it, and it really had a major effect on me as well, because then it allowed me to see that this wasn't about being gay. This was truly about having a spiritual experience. You know, it's an element of sacredness. And it's a sacredness that I find that many people are denied, because there's so much homophobia going on in the world. There's so much transphobia going on in the world. But there was a time when they were revered and respected and honored. And it's so interesting how the structure of culture has been whitewashed and just removed, and it now has people feeling less than, when originally they were hierarchy. Pretty much they were really considered like gods and goddesses, because they had the ability to see through the gaze of masculine and feminine, whereas men only see through one gaze, a man. Women only see through one gaze, when as a woman. But a two-spirit possessed the ability to see through both. And once you possess the ability to see through both, you were considered gifted. So it's that element for me that really rang true with two spirits, because my situation is definitely a spiritual situation. Clearly, as you can see by the way that I look, this is more than just about sleeping with a man or being attracted to a man or any of those generic elements of what LGBTQ is, or non-binary. Those things are on such a superficial, old school, brainwashing, self-hatred type of journey that we're in 2020. I mean, clearly the world is changing. We've got to be somehow progressive in 2020 going into 2021. That's just some old school philosophy that really just needs to end. And I believe visibility matters and visibility is important. So for me, it's about showing up as myself, as my authentic self. Because I believe once people understand to show up as their authentic self, it then begins to break down the barriers of what keeps us in fear. And usually what keeps us in fear is, the belief of what others think of us. And realistically, why do you give a shit what someone else thinks about you? Because they've got their own dirty laundry that they need to be washing and working on. And you should just be true to who you are as an individual, as a spirit, and just as someone who honors thyself.
I love that. And I guess that's what faith over fear is all about, really. So
All about.
What else this is a very open-ended question. What else are you up to these days? Are you, what's going on in your life?
I'm so glad you asked. Well, during COVID also, I created I'm creating content. That's what I'm actually doing right now. I just filmed a show yesterday. It's called Black Joy. And Black Joy is a high vibrational vibe that's created through music, conversation, trivia, and performance. I have an amazing DJ. Her name is Monday Blue. And my co-host is Roger Feather Kelly. And we do this hour-and-a-half Zoom gathering. It's like we all come together and people get on Zoom and they watch us and they dance with us and, they answer the questions with us. And it's really about lifting the vibration of humanity, but lifting the vibration of Black people specifically, considering the genocide that has always existed, but just randomly is being discovered and discussed, you know, or when I see white people that act as if they don't understand what racism is, and I'm thinking to myself, there's no way that you can't understand what racism is. So Black joy basically is a cultural rebellion. You know, it's about celebrating your Blackness, celebrating your life, celebrating the lives of others, and truly, 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 truly feeling joy. Because joy is a healing vibration. You know, there's a lot of trauma floating around in the air. And at some point, you need to have some sort of joyous, harmonious, you know, collective energy. And that's what Black joy does. It allows you to find your tribe. It allows you to, you know, be in this safe space where you can truly be your authentic self. And I just love, 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 love doing it. And I love creating content. During COVID, I created another 5 video episode called The Afro Speaks. And I created this big Afro wig out of 4 Afro wigs that I had. And through that, I would then give self-help tips and self-care tips on how to survive during COVID. It's just been really a good time to be creative because, you know, through that creativity, it really allows you to touch lives and save souls.
So Andre, where can people find all this stuff that you're talking about?
Oh my goodness, honey. You follow me on Instagram, Andre J Worldwide. Andre J Worldwide. Andre J Worldwide. Come on through. Come on through. Come on.
What was that?
Come
What was your
on,
Instagram?
come on through. Should I say it again? It's Andre J Worldwide. Come on through. Come get that feed that you need of positive energy. Come get that feed that you need of glamour. Come get that feed that you need of just having the ability to see what freedom is, because seeing what freedom is also inspires others to seek that freedom as well. You know, so come on through. Come on through. Come on through.
That's beautiful. Andre, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. It's so good to see you again. I know that a couple of years ago, we bumped into each other on the streets of New York, and it was so great to run into you then. And I hope to see you again soon. Thank you again, Andre. Have a good one, and we'll be in touch. And everyone else, we'll see you next week for next week's story update. Thanks.